Hey everyone, sorry about that. We're having some technical difficulties. I have not upgraded to the latest version of Chrome on my computer, so I'm trying to figure that out as we're going here. Um, so I'm broadcasting from my phone. Sorry if the quality is a little less than usual, but I wanted to be on time for you guys, so we're just a couple minutes late. Sorry about that. So I'm also going to try to see comments. So if you guys are watching, please go ahead and comment, and I will try to make sure I can actually see them. I've got a couple people watching, so my apologies if I can't get that done. This is not quite perfect today, but it happened. So we'll just get started on my phone here. So basically, welcome. How's it going? We're in day 3 of kind of rainy, cruddy weather. So I hope you guys are still taking care and staying safe, staying happy, and happy Mother's Day. This is a really fun day for a lot of folks and kind of a sad day for some others. So just wanted to say, we're here for you, and thank you so much to all the moms that are in support of this campaign and helping each other out in this community. We've seen some really, really great things. Moms are superheroes. So especially now, you guys are also having to teach your kids at home and work from home and do all these things. So I don't have children of my own. I have a lot of children in my life. So I've seen a lot of really, really amazing, incredible things that moms have been able to do. So there we go. All right, starting to see some comments pop up here. So keep commenting. I'm still trying to work this out on my phone here. I've never done a live stream from my phone. Just my computer. So, campaign check-in. Right now, we are doing a lot of phone banking, a lot of texting. We're having some actually really fun conversations. The texting has been great. I think folks are just staying at home and want someone to talk to, and texting is kind of the easiest way to do that. So we've had a lot of great conversations over the past week. Different business owners that we've spoken with, and a ton of voters from the district. So it's been really, really nice. So to all of you who have joined in on those conversations, either making them or participating in them, thank you. This is the only way we're going to get this done. This is the only way we can bring our community together and really ensure that we have a really bright future in the next person that we send to the Capitol on our behalf. So I really, really appreciate all of the hard work that's gone into that, and we're still trucking along at it. So if you guys have any ideas or want to join in the campaign, please get a hold of me. The website is www.addie4mn.com. That's ADDIEFORMN.com. And there's a bunch of ways to get a hold of me that way. All right, I am not seeing comments yet. So if you guys are commenting, I'm so sorry. This is just not what I wanted to do on my phone, but we'll roll with the punches, right? Okay. So, Capitol update. The negotiation deadline was last night at midnight. So, as a committee administrator, you're really involved. I'm really involved in the actual putting together of a bill. Now, last year I wasn't a committee administrator at the time. I was just a committee, not just, but I was a committee legislative assistant. So, I didn't really have a lot of involvement with the actual negotiation process. I knew what was going on. I knew when it was happening, who was in the room, that kind of thing, but I didn't know actually what was being discussed in there. So now I do, and I have some really good insight into that process. It's a lot different this year. Last year and previous years, chairs of the committees and the people who were nominated or named by the speaker in the House and the Senate Majority Leader to be on conference committees, you kind of all get locked in a room and you compare the two bills. You have your nonpartisan staff there, fiscal analysts, House Research, and Senate Counsel, doing a side-by-side comparison so you can see where the bills match up and where they don't. And then where they don't, you're trying to make that work, make it mesh. This year, we're doing that all on Zoom and phone calls. So it's looked really different, and it's been a struggle. I know a lot of committees are struggling to get that finished. I'm hoping that we all got all our bills done. Higher Ed was able to get theirs done. Environment policy that I also work with, we did not have a policy bill at the end. We put all of our policy provisions into the environment finance bill, just for ease of the Senate's committee structure is set up a little different than the House committee structure, so it's just easier for us to do that, kind of on both sides, so we can make that work a little easier within the bill. So higher ed was able to get theirs done last night. I'm so thrilled. And I wanted to tell you guys kind of that experience about it. So as you know, the Senate is controlled by the Republican Party at this time, and the Democrats are controlling the House at this time, majority parties. So our counterpart in the Senate is Senator Paul Anderson, who is a Republican, and then his CA, who's ended up being a good friend of mine throughout this process. So we you kind of hit some snags here and there. There's some bumpy areas that you have to negotiate around. And to be involved in that process has been so eye-opening. I knew what the House position was going to be. I knew what the Senate position was going to be. And there was a lot of difference, really, in what in between those two stances. So to get together and kind of put all that aside, all of the partisan stuff aside, and really just get down to, okay, we can agree on this bare bones stuff. And I do have to mention, too, I took I think it was a 92-hour negotiation seminar in law school that has really, truly helped in this situation. So learning that you don't just go in with your hard line and this is it, or you don't go in with your bottom line and say, I can't do any more, because you're probably going to have to do more then. So using different tactics that I've learned, and I'm sure, the more experienced staff person on the other side already knew, because she's done it a million times, that was really, really helpful. So we were able to kind of get over a lot of the differences really quickly. Hey, Nick. Okay, I am seeing comments now. Perfect. If you guys are coming in, comment. So I'm doing this on my phone. I usually do it on my computer. So keep commenting. I want emojis up, too. How you feeling? So kind of 11th hour, we actually got the bill done. So we agreed on a lot of stuff at the end, and there was about 6 little things that we had to work out. And we kept just going back and forth. Well, what about this? What about this? And I was able to use kind of my law school brain, as I call it, to come up with some kind of creative solutions for one provision that was really difficult. There wasn't really a standard that we could reference that I knew about, and the language was kind of vague, and so we had to work through that. And I actually ended up calling a good friend of mine who is a libertarian and a good friend of mine who is a representative, Democratic representative. Both, well, one is a lawyer and one should be a lawyer, honestly, to kind of brainstorm and get that put together. So I came back with some stuff, and what I came back with is not what ended up in the bill, but it's very similar. So having those creative solutions, and hey, Nancy, hope you guys are doing well. Happy Mother's Day. It's kind of coming up with those creative solutions to get things rolling is really helpful. And I'm hoping that most of the committees were able to do the same thing. So anytime that I see bipartisan work happening, I guess it's like an overwhelming pride that we got that done. And that we were able to really build good relationships with the other side to get it done. And so the bill that we are coming out with probably soon. We're just our House research is finalizing the final language right now. Will match up with the Senate, their version, and it's not the big grand bill that the Democrats in our side thought it was going to be, but it's good. There's a lot of good protections in there for students. You guys have heard me talk about the Argosy situation before. There's some protections in there to prevent that from happening. And the best part about what's coming out of this bill is we've gotten public commitment from the House, the Senate, and the Office of Higher Education and the Governor's Office to continue working on this over the interim. There was a lot of really good protections that weren't worded properly, or there's a stakeholder had an issue with them. It would maybe have an unintended circumstance or something like that. So to have that commitment to keep working on this over the interim and have a better bill for 2021, amazing. So great. I'm just so pumped about that. There's a little bit, and actually I've spoken about this quite a bit with my good friend Representative Tabke in Shakopee. There's some issues with just having to plan for 2 years. So when you're a House representative, and actually this year for the Senate election as well, you'll only be in that position for 2 years. So you're trying to do these big thinking ideas, thinking forward, a 10-year projection, budget-wise, policy-wise, whatever it might be, but you're only guaranteed to be there for 2 years. So that's a little difficult to kind of manage. But and then I was just remembered thinking about half of that time, your House representatives and your senators are then campaigning as well, or you're going to have to be. of course, off of work hours. Right, but you're trying to kind of court donors, and you're thinking about that in the back of your mind when really you probably should be focusing on your legislating right up until the very end. But as most of you know, we've had, conventions and elections and primaries and that kind of thing that will be starting while we're still having to legislate. So that's a really difficult line to walk, and I can probably get into that on a whole nother video, so I won't bore you guys with that today. But bottom line, we got the higher ed bill done. I believe the environment policy stuff is getting done with the finance. The people that are working on that are brilliant, and thrilled to have them there. So we were able to get some good bipartisan work done in our divided government, and under really crazy circumstances. I'm really, really proud of that work that we've done. So the other update that I completely forgot to mention is this campaign has received the endorsement of the Democratic Party. Overwhelmingly, I think we're almost at 100%, so thank you all. So if you were a delegate, I really, really appreciate your support and your continued work and engagement in this process. It's a weird process, so thank you for continuing to be engaged in it and for having that vote of confidence in this campaign to get this done. I've received quite a few messages about people that are really excited and love this kind of positivity. It's very new. This campaign is very new for this area, and I'm really proud and excited that you guys have endorsed this campaign, and I get to have my name on the ballot, and we're going for it. And people are excited about it. So thank you. I really, really appreciate that. I'm just so thrilled. And I'll get into that a little bit later too. So one other thing, last week when we did this, I had a couple people in the comments mentioning the American Promise Pledge, and I had no idea what that was. And then they said, well, Dean Phillips signed it. So, and I really love Dean Phillips. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful congressman. So I was like, oh, I'll probably look into it. I'll sign it. Sure. And someone mailed me a whole packet about it, with notes on the side and all this stuff. And I've done my research. I've read all this, and yes, I am going to sign this. I believe I have to mail it in. So I will do that, probably today or tomorrow. So that's how you get stuff done. That's so cool. I had no idea about it. Someone else did the research and sent it to us. And yeah, we agree. We're signing it. So if you guys have other things like that, issues you want me to talk about or be aware of, or make a statement on, or not, just to think about it, whatever it is, please reach out. Please send that to me. A lot of candidates get into races thinking that there's so much pressure to know everything. You have to know everything about every subject. And that's just not the case. It's not humanly possible. I mean, I am a nerd, and I like to take in all this information and learn as much as I can, but I can't possibly know everything. So stuff like that I need to know about and get involved in, that's how you get it done. So thank you for sending that to me. And I'm planning to tell a lot of other first-time candidates that I know about too, or that I'm in conversation with about that as well. So thank you. All right, so did the Capitol update. So we're going to do COVID update. I know it's a little negative. I'll try not to. Yes, actually, Nancy, Sally, and Jay did send it to me, and they are the greatest. We actually had a funny conversation, too. Their son lives with them, and I live with my parents, so we're joking about that, and he referred to him as the basement dweller. And I was like, oh, yeah, my dad lived in my mom's parents' basement when he first moved to Minnesota from Indiana, and they called him the cellar dweller. So, funny. Thought that was cute. All right, COVID updates. So we are up to 11,271 confirmed cases in Minnesota. We have jumped from, I think it was 20-something last week. Was it last week? In Carver County. We're now up to 82 confirmed cases in Carver County. That's a massive spike. So I don't think that we need to be reopening everything right away. I think the governor's still, in talks with the health experts at MDH and the University of Minnesota, economic experts that can speak to small business issues and the struggles that they're facing. And I recently learned, like an hour ago, that Governor Walz had met with folks from the beauty industry, from salon owners. So they're working on it. They're trying. But we're still seeing a huge spike in cases every week. I mean, this is the biggest one that we've had since I've been doing this update every week. So we're not out of the woods yet, and it's really, really vital that we keep doing what we're doing, that we stick close to home, that we wear our masks when we're out in public, that we're washing our hands, not touching our face, which for me is really hard, but keep doing what you're doing. It's It's gonna get better. I promise you, we'll be out of this. It'll be probably a new normal when we get to the other side of it, but we cannot lose faith right now. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say about the COVID stuff for now. I will clarify too. I clarified with the DNR. My family loves to fish and hunt, and fishing's obviously opener was yesterday. So we were a little concerned about how far can we go. The DNR order was if you're going to be out enjoying, recreational activities outside, how far can you go from home? So they have since clarified it, and they are suggesting that you stay within a tank's worth of gas to your home. So originally we were thinking, it's 3-county area, so you can go a little further than that. I will say a lot of, resort communities and the Native community up in Leech Lake, folks up in the northern greater Minnesota area where a lot of us have our cabins and friends have cabins up there, are saying they don't want the virus there. Like, if they don't have it already, we shouldn't be the ones bringing it up. So if you are going to your cabin, please, please, please stock up on your gas here, your groceries here. Don't your bait, on the way up. Just try to keep everything contained to here. Get up there, enjoy your time, have fun, but don't go to grocery stores, obviously not restaurants, but gas stations and that kind of thing. Don't be spreading it around. We could be carriers and we just don't know. So testing is getting ramped up. We're seeing good results there as far as numbers of people being tested, and I expect that will continue and expand. I believe you can get tested in the 212, the Chaska hospital out here, and I believe that will be expanding soon. We'll check on that. So, all right, done with the COVID stuff. Let's move on to my positivity sections, my favorite section of doing this. And if you guys have other things you want me to mention too, pop them in the comments. I'm happy to talk about it. So we live on the western side of the district, so we're technically in the Waconia School District area. I went to school in Chaska. We lived in Victoria at the time, and I loved it and didn't want to switch, so we stayed in Chaska. But I do get the Communicat, the Waconia school paper. So I wanted to just highlight a couple of things that I learned from there that were just amazing. So they were doing the Stay Positive 110 social media push. So check that out. Go on Facebook, Twitter, 110 or Stay Positive 110 social media. There's so many fun stories and just like warm fuzzies that you can get from that. So highly recommend checking that out. They also did a push 1 week for, I forget what they called it, something very cute, compassion cards. So they had all the students in the district, if they wanted to, donate cards to folks in assisted living and facilities and elder care facilities. Their goal was 500. They got 700 cards from kids. So that's so cool. So congratulations, you guys. Thank you for doing that. It was also Teacher Appreciation Week this week. And first of all, a week is not near enough. Teachers are underappreciated, should be more appreciated. I come from a family of teachers. My great aunt was a teacher. My cousin's a teacher. I've got 2 other cousins on the other side that are teachers. My dad's mom, my grandma was a teacher for some time. My dad, I think, was like a sub for a couple years. So I come from a family of teachers. I understand that they're not paid what we should be paying them. And there's a lot of really unique struggles that teachers face. So a week is not enough to appreciate them, but I am so glad we can at least do that. So thank you to all the teachers and all the now at-home teachers too. You guys I know it's a struggle. I hear a lot about it, that it's really grinding on some families most families to continue the distance learning from home. So take some time and give yourself a pat on the back. I know it's incredibly difficult, but you guys are doing it, and that's great. I did see a little post that I wanted to highlight to Mrs. Porthen from Victoria Elementary. I don't personally know her, so this is not her endorsing me or anything. I did just see a post that she knew of a student that was struggling at home, and she came over to their house, and the kids sat like closer to the garage, and she sat in kind of by the street, so they were very far apart, and they just sat and had a nice conversation and really turned that little girl's day around. So there's so many great attributes that teachers have to have. That compassion, that's one. I mean, that care that you have for kids that are not your own, that you just want to see them have a good day, have a good life, learn what they need to learn, and go on to be really successful human beings. That is incredible. So thank you for that. All right. As we mentioned earlier, it is Mother's Day. So thank you and happy Mother's Day to all the moms. Most of you, a lot of you watching, I know have heard this story. So I'm hoping when folks come on and watch this video again, this may be the first time that they're hearing this story. This is, my mom is the reason why I'm in politics. So I grew up in a family, my grandfather on my mom's side was very involved in politics. He worked for Barry Goldwater, he worked for Harold Levander, a lot of big name Republicans. And his wife, my grandma, was always very into it too. So I remember going to their house every single morning in Victoria. Even when I could drive, I would drive there and drop my brother off to get on the bus there, and I would sit and have a waffle. She would make me a waffle every morning, and we would watch Imus in the morning, and we would talk politics. Now, I'm not proud of the Imus in the morning part of it, but I was, raised in a really, political, circulated household. Never really thought that it would affect me personally. It was just something to talk about. I was a kid. I didn't really know. And then when I went to college and law school, wasn't really thinking about that. I loved law school. I loved the nerdiness of it. My constitutional law was my favorite class, but still wasn't thinking politically minded, right? So in 2016, and my mom's always had, I think as long as I can remember, she's had at least one autoimmune disorder. It's now increased to, I believe, 3 or 4. And when I was in college, it kind of got worse a little bit, and as a family, we faced some struggles trying to help her find the care that she needs. Thank goodness we live in Minnesota. We're so blessed to be here, and we found really good doctors that could help her out with most of these. So anyway, when I had graduated law school, moved to Illinois. I was in Champaign, Illinois for just over 3 years, or just under 3 years, rather, and I was working for one of the top horse trainers in the nation. Really unique, cool experience. Nick loved law school. I didn't like the school work part of it, or the workload, I should say, but I'm such a nerd. I love seeing how constitutional law, for example, how one case can be interpreted 9 different ways based on the justices, and how their writing style was different, how they interpreted this one sentence. That is so cool to me. That's a nerdy thing to say, but that's me. So there you go. Anyway, so I had graduated law school, working in Illinois. And I remember coming home, Christmas something, some holiday, and I remember looking down on the table and seeing her healthcare bill for that month, and it was $20,000. $20,000 for 1 month's worth of care. Okay? That floored me. That is insane. And of course we have, there's rebate programs that certain companies will use, and there's, my dad's company has really good healthcare, so I wasn't worried that we weren't going to be able to get the care for her that we could. I was worried that that's an insane amount of money for anybody to pay. And then I thought, what if that was me? What if I had to pay that? There's no way. I mean, I was a horse trainer making, $450 a week. There is no way that I could afford that. So that just floored me. And now I've always been the kind of person to do something about it. I've told the NCAA men's basketball bracket challenge story so many times I won't repeat it here, but I remember being mad and thinking well, great, we're good for a month. Well, what about next month? What about people that can't afford it? What if it was me? Who's doing anything about this? And I wasn't super involved. I wasn't involved at all in Minnesota politics, and I just didn't. I was like, well, this has gone on for so long, and it's gotten so out of control, and we're exploring options, and no one really has them. Well, that is wrong to me. So I started paying attention. Well, who's doing anything? Still, not a lot of people, not a lot of movement on the healthcare affordability, and making it so politicized is just wrong to me. We're playing political games with people's health, with people's well-being, and that's just so wrong to me. So it was then that I decided I needed to do something about that, and I quit my job training horses, broke up with the guy I was dating, packed up my dog, packed up my horses, came home. And that night that I got home, my mom and I went out to this restaurant in Waconia, Lola's. I adore that place. Again, they have not endorsed me. That's just me saying that's a good place. And it was just, it was great. It was so much fun. And she was so supportive. I had no plan when I moved home. I knew I wanted to get into politics. I knew I wanted to do something about healthcare, but I had no plan. I didn't know anybody in politics. I didn't know how to get this done. I just saw things that were wrong in my community that no one was doing anything about. There's these, racial injustice incidents that happened at this high school that I went to. There's, parks that are flooding and farms that are flooding, and no one's doing anything about it. No one's talking about the climate crisis and, all of these things. And I remember sitting at Lola's with my mom, having a great time, and just thanking her for supporting me. I had no plan. She was like, well, you'll get it. You'll figure it out. And I know everyone watching has someone in their life that has that same function, whether it's your mom, your dad, whoever. Those people that's the lifeblood of this community. That support and that belief. My mom believing in me that I could do this has carried me through all of the bad times. The campaigning is really, really tough, but my mom is always there to say we're doing the right thing. And she is the reason that I am in politics today, and the reason I will keep going until healthcare is fixed in this state. So, long story short, that's we got to thank my mom for getting me into politics here. And I did mention my grandparents too, and I want to talk about that a little bit because it leads into the topic that I've been asked to discuss today. Oh, wow, it's already, yeah, okay, we'll keep it moving. So again, my grandparents, I was raised in a Republican household. My grandfather worked for some of the pretty top Republicans in the nation. He was also the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services under George Bush Sr. So he passed away many years ago, and I'm just, kicking myself that I can't ask him right now what he thinks about this COVID crisis, because he told us stories about preparing for another polio epidemic and the AIDS epidemic, and how they had to plan for things that may or may not happen. And I would just be curious to see what he has to say about it today. The other thing I will say, and I've told this story many times as well, is yes, they were Republicans. They never questioned me in a way, like if I said, I really like this particular issue that Al Gore said, I like the way he said it. It was never a, how dare you, you don't think that, this is a Republican family. It was never that. It was a very calm, okay, well, why do you think that? Let's talk that through. It was more of a healthy debate rather than questioning or even trolling, like you can't think that. So that expanded my ability to debate and my appetite for it. So debate school or debate club in high school, speech club rather, mock trial in college, going on to law school, that kind of thing. And I really they're to thank for that. That's also how I wish more politicians were in our day and age. The only reason that we were able to get a higher ed bill done this year is because a Republican and a Democrat from either side got together and put aside their differences and said, what can we agree on? Let's do that. Great. It shouldn't be this, anti-party. This kind of two-party system is really a big detriment in our society. People that won't vote for you, won't even listen to what you have to say because you have a D or an R next to your name on the ballot. I'm sure a lot of candidates, especially in areas like this, have faced that. So I'm hoping that throughout all these conversations that I am having, that my fellow candidates are having, I see a couple of them watching now, we're able to kind of break that mold. Not all Democrats are made the same. Not all Republicans are made the same. Not all libertarians, not all independents. It just happens to be that we have to have two parties on the ballot, but there's so much more in between, and there's so much more that we agree on. I promise you, there is so much more that we agree on than we disagree on. So that's what my grandparents taught me, and my parents have done the same thing. My dad's not super into politics. I have told everyone he is a libertarian, tried and true. I think he also halfway says that because it's funny to him to say that to me. And my mom and I both have been Republicans in the past and are Democrats now. I actually, fun fact, founded the Young Republicans Club at my high school. I don't think it exists anymore, but there's so much more that we agree on than we disagree on. So I'm hoping we can get over that partisan roadblock that we constantly see in politics to really get the good stuff done. So that leads me into my next topic, which will be the last of the day. Unless you guys have questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments. I'm happy to derail from my agenda and not just talk at the camera for an hour. We've gotten a couple questions about the ERA, which is really interesting, and I'm thinking that it's triggered by the Hulu series Mrs. America. Highly recommend, love it. It's mostly accurate. There's some inaccuracies in there, but it's very entertaining. So we've gotten a couple questions about that, and I'm really happy to talk about it. Again, huge nerd, love constitutional law in law school, love constitutional stuff. So I'm really happy to discuss this. Now, I will say there are some false equivalencies that tend to happen when we talk about the ERA. Nick just asked, what's the most surprising thing? I'm guessing you mean what's the most surprising thing about the campaign so far. Yeah. Ooh, most surprising thing. That's a good one. That there is so much infighting within the parties, especially out here. People are pretty set in their ways out here, so to have a lot of infighting how you should look or you should act or you should say this, or they'll never vote for you because of this. That was shocking to me when I first announced that I was running. And I, in speaking with some of the Republican candidates out here too, apparently that's the same thing there. So that was really surprising. The other thing is the donation, the fundraising. Fundraising is terrible. Every candidate will tell you that is their least favorite part of this job. Hopefully one day we can get to publicly funded elections and we won't have to do this fundraising nonsense, but I hate it, and I hate asking people for money, and I'm asking them to believe in this vision and invest in this vision, the future that we have for this county, but it takes money, especially now. I feel very uncomfortable asking for money, but people have been doing it. When I ask for some, I'm getting a lot. When I ask, not for anything, I'm still getting some. So people are believing in this vision, and I'm just overwhelmed every time I see that little Act Blue notification on my phone or an envelope comes in the mail. I'm just like blown away and overwhelmed with emotion of people believe in this. Like they believe in what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and it's gotta work, So thank you to all who have donated and continue to donate. I can't tell you how much it means to us. That we're able to expand our vision a lot more. We're going to reach a lot more voters because of that. So that's also been very surprising too. I will say the other thing, I kind of knew it was coming just based on working on campaigns before in the last cycle, but didn't realize how strong it was out here, is people that are one-issue voters. If you do not agree with them on this one issue, it doesn't matter whatever else you say, they will not vote for you. And that's okay. You're more than entitled to have that opinion, right? I'm just surprised at people's one issue. I'm used to the pro-choice or anti-choice being a huge issue, or the gun issue being a huge issue. Some of the other smaller ones I'm very shocked at. And I'm happy to be honest. I've said multiple times I'm a really bad liar, and I'm not gonna lie. You can see it on my face. So I would much rather people know, maybe I'm not that one issue for you. I might be that one issue or your candidate for 10 other issues. But if that's your one, I'd, love to have that conversation. So that's also been very surprising. I love that question. Thank you. If you guys, again, have more questions, you've run into that too, Scott. Yeah, it's odd. And there's usually some really great backstory for it. They really care about family law because their parents had a nasty divorce or something like that, or they have a family friend that's a veterinarian who can't pay back their student loans, so we're talking about whatever it might be. Those conversations are really fun to have, I will say. I love getting to know folks. I love getting to know what makes them tick, what's the reason they get up in the morning, what keeps them up at night, what are they worried about, what are they happy about. Most of the time it's not political. I will say, like, a lot, when you call and you say, I'm a candidate running for office, they automatically think, oh, politics, man, I got to have this conversation. But if you can get them talking about their day or their life, or, what do you love about living in Carver? What do you love about, your favorite restaurant in Watertown, whatever it is? Your kids go to school at La Academia. What's that like? Get people talking. That's the fun part about campaigning. Those are the conversations I love to have. And there's always ways to kind of pull it back into politics, because politics does affect our everyday lives so much. Maybe one little thing that I could do as a state senator that would make their life a little easier in this one aspect, and maybe they didn't think of that, or that's really fun. So if you want to have those conversations with your friends and neighbors, please let me know, and we can get you set up to phone bank or text bank with us. And I will always, always say, there's so much power in community organizing. So I can make speeches all day long. I can ride around in parades and wave at folks and whatever. But that doesn't matter to some folks, most folks, really. So it matters that their neighbor down the street thinks that this campaign will be good for them because of X, Y, and Z. And it might make them think, oh, well, maybe they'd be good for me too. And that kind of relational community organizing is how we're going to get across the finish line in November. So please, 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 if you feel strongly about this campaign, even if you feel a little strongly about this campaign, tell your friends and neighbors, post about us on Facebook, tweet about us, post an Instagram picture, whatever it might be. You're walking down the street and you run into your neighbor talking about high property taxes or something, tell them about this campaign. I'm more than happy to talk through anything with anybody, tough conversations or not. Please send them my way. I'm more than happy to have those conversations. Hey, Paul. Yee, so excited. Former representative. Thank you for watching. All right, so we're heading into this ERA conversation. Again, please, if you have comments, questions, want me to tell a story, want me to answer something, just drop it in the comments and I can derail from the ERA at any time. So I do think it's because of this Mrs. America series, and I love it. I love watching it with my mom because my grandfather was in politics in D.C., D.C., between D.C. and here, at the time that this was all going on. So she's, we hear Bill Ruckelshax and Bill and Jill, Ruckelhaus, something like that, former EPA administrator, and she's like, oh, your grandfather knew him. We were really good friends with them. My grandmother Toddy was really good friends with Jill, and that's just so cool. So the ERA back then, it's a little different than how it is now. It's been really politicized, as most things have been, unfortunately. But so back when it was first passed in 73, it was 72. Minnesota ratified the U.S. version of it in 73. So it was originally passed in March of 72. Back in 1940, the Republican Party added the ERA, Equal Rights for Women, into their party platform. So as most of you who are politically involved know, Democrats and Republicans, well, all parties really, all major and minor parties have a political platform that they encourage their candidates to support. Not all candidates support all of the things on all of the platforms, but it's kind of a good indicator card, So the Republican Party added the ERA to their platform in 1940. The Democrats didn't do it till 44. And then the Republicans took it off in 80. So I think starting in 80, it got a little more politicized than it was before. So Jill, who was featured on this, that was friends with my grandmother, was a big proponent. She was a Republican, huge player in the Republican Party, and she was a big proponent of the ERA. So that was like a more progressive version of the Republican Party that my grandfather was also a part of. And he worked for one of the most right-wing candidates, Barry Goldwater, and still was supporting things like the ERA and same-sex marriage. So like I said earlier, there's so many different ways to be a Democrat. There's so many different ways to be a Republican. So it should just be about the issues that really matter to you. Anyway, so the U.S. Congress passed the ERA in 72, sent it to the states. So 38 states had to ratify it by 79, March of 79. Minnesota ratified it in 73, like immediately after the U.S. one was passed. Then in 70 something, sorry, I don't have this in my notes, the U.S. Congress voted to extend that deadline to 82. So it was June of 82 to get 3/5 of the states to ratify. So Scott, the 2020 census, is Minnesota still on top? I think so. I should check on that, actually. I will check on that, and I'll report back next time. I was so thrilled when I saw that Carver County was like towards the top of the census. So if you haven't filled out your census, do it. I do not know the other states' percentages, but I will get back to you on that. So, yes. So in 1982-ish, we had 38 states ratify it. 5 have since rescinded. Now, I'm not going to get into the really legalese of why the 5 states that have rescinded their ratification. It's very complicated. Basically, Article 5 of the Constitution does not outline any process for rescinding a ratification. So that hasn't really been decided in the courts at this point, and the Constitution's essentially mute on it, on that particular issue. So there's some concerns with legally, rescinding, if it's legal, if it's not, what does that mean? Recently, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of my personal heroes, said, I think actually not too long ago, maybe February, there was a decision that she commented on that basically said the ERA has expired. The time has expired, and we need to start all over, essentially. So it's a lot frustrating. It's a lot upsetting. But I trust Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's one of my favorite justices. And if she legally, constitutionally thinks that we need to start over, then that's what we got to do. So, basically, okay, sorry, I'm trying to get my notes in order here. So in 92, there was the Madison Amendment, the 27th Amendment, I think, was ratified in 92. That was over 200 years, so this is different from the ERA. That was over 200 years after it was sent to the states. There was no timeline, no deadline on that. So there's been a lot of cases that have argued the constitutionality of having that deadline for the ERA because, hey, the 27th Amendment, Madison Amendment didn't have one. Why does the ERA have to have one? The Supreme Court has said since that it is constitutional for the Congress to have a deadline in place. So that's a bummer. Beyond that, so there's the federal level and then there's the state level. So some states, about half the states now, have their own version of the ERA in their own constitution. So Minnesota does not have that. Women do not have equal protection under the Minnesota Constitution. A lot of folks don't know that. My mom even was shocked to hear that. So this biennium, so last year, Representative Mary Kunesh-Poudin and I believe Senator Sandy Pappas had a bill that would put this to the voters. So to put the ERA as a Minnesota constitutional amendment to the voters in 2020. That did not pass. Well, it passed flying colors with flying colors in the House, and the Senate didn't even hear it. Yet again, another thing the Senate didn't do anything on. Didn't even hear it. And then there was also Representative Moran, and I don't remember the senator that carried it on that side, had a resolution to tell Congress to remove the deadline. So to basically allow more of the states to ratify the ERA. Again, passed with flying colors. I think the vote was nearly unanimous on that one. It was not with Representative Kunesh-Poudin's, but with Representative Moran's was a lot closer. Again, Senate wouldn't hear it. So despite having bipartisan support on the House side of the aisle, Senate wouldn't even hear it. Really, really disappointing. So a couple of the common questions I'm going to answer that I always get when I talk about the ERA. I'm a huge supporter of the ERA. I think it's just absolutely ridiculous that we don't have it. I mean, it's silly. And it's not to say that women will, like the ERA will fix everything and suddenly women will get equal rights and be treated equally to men. And, we've seen that with the same situation with race equity. We've passed racial equity under the Constitution and enshrining case law time and time and time again, and we're still not seeing that equal treatment. So I'm not advocating for passing the ERA because it gives us equal treatment, period. I'm advocating for it because it gives women equal treatment under the eyes of the law. That's the key terminology in there. So some funny questions, I think, that have come in, or interesting questions, rather, that have come in, is if we support the ERA, if we put our Minnesota version of the ERA in the Minnesota Constitution, won't that mean that women can get drafted? So, basically, Article 1 and Section, did I write this down? I did. 8 of the U.S. Constitution gives Congress the power to raise a military. It does not say anything about gender or age. Very interesting. So Congress already has the power to draft women if they wanted to. Beyond that, I think it's a false it's kind of a hollow argument. We already have an all-volunteer military. We have for years, for decades. 20% of those volunteers are already women, people that have volunteered, women that have volunteered to serve their country and sacrifice for their country in some instances. What the ERA would do is make sure that there's equal justice under the law for those women in the military. So, Congress banned women from being in combat units for decades and decades. I think it was very recently, I want to say like 2015, that the Department of Defense opened that up to allow women to be in combat. So that, I think they're still not allowed to be in riot control, for all those silly false reasons of women are weaker, more emotional, whatever. I'm not even going to entertain those here. Those are very silly arguments. And if you want to have that conversation, please call me. We can talk that over. But I'm not going to do it here because it's a long conversation that we're not going to have. So having the ERA would prevent that from happening. So men and women who choose to serve in the military will be treated equally. Now, there's a argument that kind of gets me a little heated, that if we have equal protections, doesn't it mean that we're going to have shared bathrooms? So just to point this out, there are already shared bathrooms in businesses all across the state, all across this country. I know you all have seen them, and you have shared bathrooms in your home, most likely. So that already exists, and there's very little, if any, evidence of, like a pedophile lurking in a bathroom, saying that they're a woman and waiting to prey on women. Like, that's a false argument. That is a perfect example of when I say fear tactics and leading by fear. This is a perfect example of that, using kind of trigger words and arguments that appeal to a protectionist impulse or a kind of paternalistic instinct. I can't have that happen to my daughter, so I'm going to be against the ERA. There are certain groups that realize that fear tactic is easy. It's very easy to use, and it's very easy to get people riled up with little to no evidence behind it. So if you hear along the line, these men are going to be in women's bathrooms, they're going to be attacking you because of the ERA, I mean, like, if you do the math and look at the data, that's actually false. It's completely false. It's a perfect fear-mongering tactic to get people to be motivated around an issue that they want or don't want. That's used in tons and tons of other issues. I mean, we all saw it with the with the same-sex marriage battle that happened in Minnesota. I was not here for that, but I know many of my friends have working in that and have said the same thing. These fear-mongering tactics were used there, and it's being used here, and I just think it's a false argument. And then there's another argument that Social Security and really any kind of benefit, federal or state benefit, will be in danger because of the ERA. Now, that's not true at all. First of all, it's very simple to replace any kind of gendered terminology in laws to read, say, instead of saying mother, you say primary caregiver, because it could be a father that's a primary caregiver. The Social Security and things, those are not in danger because of the ERA. Those might be in danger because of congressional ideology. Any kind of social program is controlled by federal or state government. It has nothing to do with the ERA. So there's an argument that women already have equal rights under the law. Not true at all. One of my favorite relationships that I'm a fan of is the relationship between Justice Ginsburg and Justice Scalia. They were two completely opposite people, and they were both incredible justices, and my two favorite to read in law school. So when we'd open up a case and you'd read the case, and then you'd read the dissenting opinion and the majority opinion, if it was written by Scalia, it'd be a paragraph. Scalia was so direct, and he knew exactly what he was saying, he knew exactly what he meant, and he was an originalist. So he interpreted the Constitution with its original intent, with just what the words were saying, and nothing about, what's happened since then, no kind of molding. There's, not to get too, law school policy nerd with our 7 minutes left, but there's a lot of different ways that justices are classified, and he was classified as an originalist. So he said in sorry, I don't remember the year, nothing in the Constitution other than the 19th Amendment specifically pertains to women. So we do not have equal protection under the law. We do in the 19th Amendment. That gives us the right to vote, but women do not have that under the law. So basically, there's and I'll read this to you guys too, because it's very, very interesting. The reason that I'm such a big supporter of the ERA, if I can find it here. There we go. It has to do with the different tests in the law. So there's different kind of ways to judge a case. So you might have heard of like preponderance of the evidence or clear and convincing evidence. Those are two different legal standards. So in cases of sex discrimination, courts currently apply a heightened, it's called a skeptical level of intermediate scrutiny and require extremely persuasive evidence to uphold a government action that differentiates on the basis of sex. However, the intermediate standard of review requires only that such classifications must be made substantially in advance to advance an important governmental objective. So basically, if we pass the ERA federally, it would make sex a suspect classification protected by the highest level of scrutiny, similar to race. We have that in race. We do not have it in sex. So yeah, I'm a big supporter and happy to continue talking about those details. I can get as nerdy as you want or as like layman's terms as you want about that. And it was really interesting to get that that question a few times this week. So thank you for that. And you guys know how to get a hold of me to continue talking about it. So there's a couple of reasons I do want to touch on in our last couple of minutes here why I think it failed in Minnesota, our Minnesota constitutional version. There was a big discussion about the words gender and sex. So the current ERA says the word sex. It does not say gender. The way it was written in the bills this year was gender. It turned into a much bigger discussion about trans rights or, gender identity. And if you go back, if you want to get mad, go back and listen to that floor debate. It was just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So I think it's very important for senators and representatives, anyone in elected office, to really focus on what the question is. I learned this in law school too. You focus on what exactly the issue is, what exactly the question is. Don't use false equivalencies. Don't, make connections where there aren't any, and really use the data that's actually there to make those decisions. So I will always do that. That's how my brain was trained in law school, and that's how it continues to operate now. So, and I would encourage all of our senators and representatives to do the same. If I'm elected to the Minnesota State Senate, I promise to always do that. Just not making big grandiose arguments that don't have anything to do with anything else. Really focusing on what the bill says, what the issue is, and tackling it from there. So, yeah, that's all we've got. Last couple minutes. Anyone have any other questions? You can pop in the comments. Tell me what you're doing for Mother's Day. And then if you have any topics you want me to cover in the following weeks, we're going to be here a while. So I'm going to be doing this every week. I'm happy to cover any topic that you want me to cover. Even if it's a tough one, I'm fine with that. Bring it on. I've gotten a request to do kind of a split screen. I think I've talked about this with a former teacher of mine and talk about public education. One of my biggest heart issues, that healthcare and mental health are my top 3 biggest issues that I really am striving to make a difference in. So that will definitely be a day, and I'm happy to, maybe we even have my friend Mr. Dan Kessler, who's running for the House seat in 47B. He's a mental health professional. I'd love to have him on too. Yeah, so if you guys have suggestions, go ahead and get a hold of me. I'm going to make my one last ask here is, we're all sitting around not doing a whole lot outside, I hope, not having big public gatherings, so you have time to make phone calls, make texts and emails, post on social media. If you have that capacity and you want to help us out and really help us get across the finish line, it's a great opportunity to connect with not only volunteers on this team and our incredible staff on this team. Thank you all for watching, by the way. I see a couple of you on here. But to really give this, the life that it needs, give this campaign the life that it needs. And it's fun to connect with neighbors, maybe people you've never talked to before. They just live down the street from you and you never talked to them. So we send you in with a a script that you can use if you want to, kind of a direction that you can go. And we're not doing any really persuasive talks right now. It's not quite the time for that. We're just inviting people in to the team, inviting them to watch these and comment and ask questions and learn and that kind of thing. So it's the fun time. So please, if you have time and are able to do that, let me know and I will help you get set up for that. The other thing is, again, the donation part of it. I hate asking for donations. I really do not like it, but this campaign with COVID just got a lot more expensive. We're not allowed to door knock at this point. We are going to be relying on digital ads and mailers. I would really like to pay some of my staff that work tirelessly hours on end for free at this point. I would really like to compensate them for their work as well, and really help us get the word out as much as possible, and that's going to unfortunately cost money. So if you have it in your budget to donate $5, $10, $100, $500, whatever it might be, please let me know. Please, it would be much, much appreciated. And I am still taking stamp donations. If you want to buy a roll of stamps, keep the USPS alive, and send those stamps to me. We use a lot of them quite often, so that would be much appreciated as well. Nancy, I got 2 Nancys. Thank you, Addie. Family video hang for Mother's Day at 3. Awesome. Tell your kids I said hi. We went to high school. A couple of us went to high school together. So, and then Nancy Vandenberg. Thanks, Addie. I've been phoning constituents about these virtual town halls. Thank you so much, Nancy. Both Nancys. Thank you, guys. I'm really hoping you're having good conversations out there too. And if anything comes up, let me know. We are still kind of working on our endorsement procedure on the website. We will eventually have a little page where you can submit your endorsement of this campaign. So why you support the campaign, if you want to put your name on it or not, or your picture on it or not, totally up to you. But that does help. We're going to be putting those out as often as we can once we get that set up. So be thinking about that. If you want to lend your voice to this campaign, it would be much appreciated. That's the only way we're going to get this done. I've got a lot of really big, fun, grand ideas, and I really want to lead with a positive, like politics of joy, not fear-mongering, not, the world is ending, just what can we get done? And the way we get that done is community building and everybody pitching in to get this campaign across the finish line, especially in such a weird time, in such a unique position. We've got an open race. Our senator is retiring, so it's anybody's game at this point, and I want that game to be ours. So, let me know. You guys know how to get a hold of me: email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, website, all of that good stuff. Please keep submitting your questions; they're really helpful. And comments and stories. I'm happy to read those as well. All right, everyone, go enjoy your Mother's Day, or whatever kind of day you're having. Go enjoy it. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help you out, or you just want to chat. Let me know. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.